like to now welcome Kate Fee and Steve Kuzmanovic from Suncor Energy's Health and Safety team as we talk about POST's new Critical Control Assurance Checklist. Both Kate and Steve have been instrumental in translating HOP and critical control assurance principles into practical, real-world applications in the field. Kate, Steve, thanks for joining me today. So CCA is a new tool under the POST program, but its foundations didn't start here. Kate, can you please share how this started as a Suncor initiative?
This is really exciting for us. So yeah, you're right. CCA is really new under POST, and its foundations actually didn't start that long ago in Suncor either. So for a long time, Suncor safety program, like many across our industry, was built around what we called the journey to zero. The goal was zero harm, zero incidents. And of course, this intention comes from the right place. We all want everyone to go home safe. But over time, we started to really notice something that was hard to ignore. Despite all the effort, the statistics in our industry were just not changing. Internally, we were seeing the same kind of serious incidents happen again and again. And externally, the data told the same story, about 20 fatalities per 100,000 construction workers year after year. And that's just shocking. Then in 2022, things actually got worse. Nationally, workplace fatalities went from 44 in 2021 to 67 in 2022. And that's a 52% jump in just 1 year. And when we looked at the longer term trend, it was even more striking. Canadian workplace fatalities have basically stayed the exact same the last 20 years. Now at Suncor, safety has always been one of our core values. So seeing this lack of progress, despite having strong programs and really dedicated people, forced us to take a really hard look at what we were doing and what we believed about safety. And that's when we started to realize we needed a big shift, not just in our process, but in our mindset. And we began moving forward away from this idea of zero incidents, where the main focus is on preventing every single mistake, and into what's known as human and organizational performance, or HOP. You've probably heard me talk about this last year and the year before, and Stacy the year before that. So, as you know, HOP's actually really about understanding how the work happens and not the ideal version of it, but the real version where humans are just human. And that means people are going to make mistakes, and that's completely normal, it's expected. But those mistakes don't have to lead to serious harm. And if we build strong critical controls, we can make sure that when something does go wrong, we have the capacity to fail safely. And that's what we mean when we say it's not about the absence of incidents, it's the presence of capacity. It's the ability of our systems, our people, and the processes to handle the unexpected safely. Yeah, so that's how this whole concept and what will become CCA really began. It came from this simple but profound recognition that perfection is just not realistic, and trying to manage safety through chasing zero was keeping us from looking at what really matters. How work happens, how people make decisions, and whether our controls are strong enough to keep them safe when things do not go according to plan. And this mindset shift has been really powerful, not just for Suncor, but for the broader industry. And the conversation also that has grown from it, including how we are now embedding it here under POST and through the CCA tool.
So Steve, you've seen this evolve, and from an internal initiative to something that we're now rolling out industry-wide. So what helped it move from Suncor to POST?
For sure, thanks for the question, Michelle. So for me, the shift from Suncor to POST really started with a simple realization. The challenges that we were trying to solve internally weren't unique to Suncor at all. Inside Suncor, there was a deliberate push to strengthen how we manage serious injury and fatality risk. We were leaning heavily into human and organizational performance, really shifting from blaming individuals to understanding how work is actually performed in the field. And that's truly where critical controls assurance began to take shape. And to give credit where it's due, this didn't just happen quietly. So in Q3 2024, Suncor formally introduced the concept to the POST committee through a presentation by one of our senior risk advisors, his name's Scott Rogers. He flew in specifically to walk the committee through the early model. That presentation was extremely well received and really opened the door for broader collaboration amongst the committee. From there, things accelerated. In early 2025, we had Jawad Rashid, who's here with us today. He delivered a full presentation at the Post Forum to walk members through the foundation of critical controls assurance, how it works in the fields, and why it's different from traditional form-based safety compliance. That was a major turning point because it moved CCA from an interesting idea to something the entire committee could see working across the industry. So CCA gave us a practical way to focus on what truly matters, the handful of controls that prevent serious outcomes. So instead of asking, did we follow the procedure? We started asking, are the controls that keep people alive working right now? So as the tool matured inside Suncor, it became clear this wasn't a Suncor problem, or a Suncor solution. The high-risk tasks that we're talking about, like confined space, lifting, hot work, they are industry-wide. And the gap between work as imagined and work as performed, well, that's universal. So the desire to elevate the industry as a whole was a big driver. Serious incidents don't stop at company boundaries. If we truly want to reduce high-risk events, we need common language, common expectations, and practical tools that work in the real world, not just on paper. So since the 2025 forum presentation, the Post Advisory Committee has really stepped up, leaning into the early model, engaging in open discussions, providing field-based feedback, and actively shaping how this checklist evolved. Their contribution helped refine the wording, simplify questions, and tighten the focus on critical controls. So what we ended up with is something I'm truly proud of, a tool that gives the industry a common way to verify whether life-saving rules and controls are actually functioning in the field. So the way we want to look at it is, it's not more paperwork, it's not more burden, but it's more confidence. So what helped move CCA from Suncor to Post? I believe it was a true blend of early leadership, internal learning, a strong industry appetite, and real collaboration through Post to enhance safety. I think it's a clear example of what can happen when we unify around serious harm prevention.
And we absolutely appreciate Scott and Jawad's laying the groundwork for this, so thank you. Kate, through previous discussions and presentations, we've talked about a shift in mindset. So, what does that look like and why now?
Yeah, good question. What really has been transformative for us is the shift from compliance to capacity. So compliance ensures we are following the rules, but capacity is what keeps people safe when things don't go according to plan. And in the real world, unfortunately, work rarely goes exactly as planned, as we all know. So people make mistakes, and that's completely normal, especially when tasks are repetitive, when someone's done them dozens or even hundreds of times. It's really, really easy to skip a step unintentionally or forget to verify the controls. And that's actually where the idea of a checklist came in. It's just a simple, really practical reminder for workers and supervisors to just pause and confirm that the critical controls are in place before they start. Because we know that even experienced people can miss things under pressure or when the tasks just become really routine. And the checklist, I want to make very clear, is not about policing the work. It's about supporting it and giving our teams the tools to catch what human nature might overlook. And the reason we focus so much on those critical controls is because those are our absolute safeguards. The things that must be in place to protect workers if everything else fails. And there are many mitigations, processes, and layers of protection across every single job, and they're all really important. But the critical controls are what allow us to fail safely when conditions shift, or when the ideal world of the procedure meets the messiness of the day-to-day, which we all know. And that brings us to how we are now redefining success. It's no longer about achieving perfection or preventing every single slip. It's about being safe despite failure. And success means resilience. It means knowing that when the unexpected happens, and it will, our systems, our people, and our controls are ready for it. And a huge part of making this work on a daily basis is the observer. They're the real-time assurance leads engaging with our teams observing the work while it's actually happening and checking that those critical controls are effective. And their insight really helps close the gap between how work is designed and how it's really done, creating that feedback loop that strengthens safety across the board. I think what's powerful is how these lessons are now spreading across our walls. So through programs like POST, the industry is sharing approaches, learning from each other, and building a shared capacity for safe performance. So when we talk about transformation, it's not just about Suncor changing how we think about safety, it's about all of us as an industry moving from compliance to capacity, from perfection to resilience, and from isolated practices to collective learning. And because that's how we build an industry where safety isn't the absence of incidents, it's the proven ability to fail safely and keep people protected every single day. And that's the kind of transformation I think, and I hope you all think too, that benefits all of us.
It's very exciting to see this shift happen. And but before we get to the actual checklist, Steve, we can talk a bit about the guide. And for everyone here, we do have it in the booklet. I think it's on page 13. So this guide is a companion to the checklist.
The guide opens by grounding the reader in the purpose of critical controls assurance. It describes CCA as a proactive approach centered on high-risk activities where a small set of controls are essential to preventing serious harm. Instead of checking everything, the guide directs observers to concentrate on the controls that must work flawlessly every time to keep people safe. It also outlines the critical activities covered by the checklist. So these are lockout, tagout, equipment lifting, confined space, and others. The guide makes clear that CCA is not meant for every job or every day. It should be used intentionally and risk-driven, based on how often high-risk work occurs, recent incidents or learnings, regulatory or internal triggers, and the operator or contractor's risk profile. CCA is designed as a periodic assurance tool, used strategically to confirm that critical controls are functioning in real conditions, not something routine that becomes diluted through overuse. A key principle is observer independence. The guide stresses that the observer should be a fresh set of eyes, someone not embedded with the crew, such as another supervisor, a safety lead, or a manager. This maintains objectivity and avoids the blind spots that come from doing the same work daily.
So I know it's a bit of info to take in initially. Once you start doing the checklist, you will all see that it's actually very easy to use. Kate, I guess we'll go through the checklist now, which is also included in your booklet. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, sure. So you can find that on page 18, actually, last page here. So the one on the left, we're going to call page 1, and then page 2 on the right for you here. So it has two pages, and the first part of page 1 captures just the basic sign and observation details like location, date, time, description of task is here, and then the critical task that is taking place. And you can choose more than one. You don't have to fill out one checklist for each critical control assurance here. It also, of course, reinforces the HUB principles, which means to focus on what failed versus who failed, avoid the blame, understand why decisions were made, to learn from the worker. And then page 2 on your right here is used during the task, where the observer conducts the real-time show-me checks to verify that essential controls are actually in place, using the checklist flowchart on the bottom of page 1. It guides the observer's answers and addresses any no answers that require stopping work until the issue is resolved. After the job, please make sure to discuss your findings with the crew and, of course, capture any immediate action. And then, very important, share your learnings with your organizations, which really reinforces the learning culture rather than the blame, like we talked about before. So in short, the guide provides the philosophy, expectation, and direction on when to use the CCA, and the checklist gives observers a structured way to verify critical controls during live work, focusing on the safeguards to prevent serious injury or fatality. And used periodically by someone that is independent of the crew, which is also very important, and applied to the highest risk activities, it creates a consistent way for the industry to confirm that controls that matter most are actually working.
We've also asked contractors to test the checklist, and in the field and provide us some feedback. So the beta testing is still ongoing, and then we will be reviewing the feedback through the post advisory committee at our next meeting. Steve, what are some of the sample questions or feedback we are already hearing from the beta testers?
For sure, Michelle. So one of the most valuable parts of the beta has been the level of detail in the feedback. Not just this works or this doesn't, but really thoughtful questions about expectations, language, and alignment. Starting with what's been easy, most beta testers tell us the structure of the checklist is intuitive. The critical activities make sense, the questions are clear, and people immediately understand that this isn't meant to replace post permits or procedures. It's meant to verify the controls that prevent serious harm and that they're actually working in real time. So where the feedback has been especially helpful is around clarity and consistency. Several contractors have asked a very fair question. If we're treating certain controls as critical and mandatory through CCA, how clearly are those same expectations reflected in the underlying post checklists? So for example, when the CCA is applied to confined space or tank field sump entry, people notice gaps. So things like how clearly isolation or lockout is described or how respiratory protection is worded. In some cases, the intent is there, but the language could be tighter or more explicit, so the expectations are unmistakable. So we've also heard similar feedback around dropped objects. The risk is well understood, but testers pointed out that controls aren't always clearly articulated across post documents. So that kind of field-based feedback is incredibly valuable. What I really appreciate about this input is the mindset behind it. The messages aren't, this is wrong. It's, if we expect consistent application, let's make sure the system is aligned. So that's a very HOP consistent way of thinking. At the same time, there's a recognition that large document systems don't change overnight. But it was important for us to get something into the hands of the industry as soon as possible. So nothing is perfect. Continuous improvement relies on everyone's input and feedback. The feedback we received also recognizes that trying to update every post checklist would be disruptive. So instead, the recommendation is to feed these learnings into the formal document review process and build them into future revisions where warranted. Supervisors' reactions have followed a similar path. Some were initially cautious about scope, wondering whether CCA was expanding expectations. But once they used it, many said it actually helped sharpen conversations. It clarified what is truly non-negotiable and gave them a common language to explain why certain controls must be in place before work continues. Overall, the feedback tells us the tool is doing what it's supposed to do. It's not just checking compliance, it's surfacing misalignments, prompting good questions, and strengthening the system over time. So that's exactly what we hope the beta test would achieve.
And right now we're calling this a soft launch with continued evaluation and feedback from ongoing refinement with our advisory committee. We're also looking at hopefully some webinars for people that couldn't be here today, other provinces, so we can continue that discussion, as well as some video tutorials, and then new lesson in post, obviously, and hopefully our official launch for January 2027. So one final question for you both. What's one thing you hope contractors take away from this checklist? Steve, I'll start with you.
So for me, the one thing I hope contractors take away from this checklist, that it's not about paperwork, it's about confidence. Confidence that when high-risk work is happening, the controls that truly prevent serious injury or fatality are not just written down, but actually working in the field. The CCA checklist isn't trying to capture everything. It's intentionally narrow. It focuses on the few controls that matter the most when the consequences are the highest. If those controls fail, the outcomes can be life-altering. This tool creates a pause in the job, a moment to step back and ask, if something goes wrong right now, would these controls protect the people doing the work? So that's a very different question than did we complete the form?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I would also add, we really hope the contractors see that as a conversation starter and not just another inspection, like I said before. The checklist is heavily grounded in human and organizational performance, and it's built off the idea that the workers are the problem solvers, that work does not go as planned, and that learning happens best when people feel free to speak up and are not afraid. And when the checklist identifies a gap, the expectation isn't blame, it's curiosity. Why does the gap exist? Is the control practical? Is the system supporting the work, or is it actually getting in the way?
I'll add to that. So I also hope contractors walk away understanding that CCA is about assurance, not ownership. It doesn't replace post-permits, procedures, or supervision. It complements them by providing a fresh set of eyes. Someone stepping in to verify that the most critical safeguards are in place during real work. Instead of trying to manage every risk equally, it helps us prioritize what is truly non-negotiable when serious harm is possible.
I think ultimately the key takeaway that we are hoping for and that we're aiming for is that shared responsibility. Right? Like serious incidents affect really everyone, the worker, the operator, the industry as a whole. And by using this common approach to critical controls, we raise the baseline for everyone and not just one contractor or one site.
Good point, Kate.
Exactly.
So in closing, I guess, if contractors walk away seeing this checklist as a practical tool that supports safe work, one that helps align expectations, strengthen conversations, and prevent life-changing events, then we've done what we set out to do.
Thank you both for joining me today, and to the rest of the post committee for all of the work on this initiative, because it is important for us, if we're introducing new tools, that they're simple and effective. Well, thank you very much, Kate and Steve.
Thank you.
Great
Michelle.
work, everyone. Jawad, Scott, and all the Suncor team.